right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me. I am Lisa Brown, CEO and founder of CST Group. We are an IT firm that specializes in helping compliance-driven industries to protect, secure, and manage their technology. There are a lot of people on the call today. So instead of wasting time with my credentials and bragging about how awesome we are, I just want to get directly to the webinar. So if you want to learn more, I know I have a lot of new people on this call. I have some clients on the call. I have some new people on the call. So please just visit the website, cstsupport.com, if you want to learn more about who we are and what we do. So I will direct you there. We only have 30 minutes, so I'd rather get right down to business so we have time for questions at the end. Okay. I am being joined by Sarah and Michelle. They are watching the chat and the Q&A, so please ask those questions. I want you to get as much out of this webinar as possible, and obviously everyone can benefit from the answers. So let's get started. All right, guys, here's the agenda. First is I just want to give you a background on planning your tech budget. So I want to give you some steps to make that a little easier. It should not be a complicated thing. Number two is I just want to give you a what to include that is going to be imperative to make sure that you are not forgetting anything. And then I'm also going to tell you what is required. So for many of you that are in a compliance-driven industry, and by that I mean anybody that has to comply with state, federal, or insurance requirements, I'm going to give you kind of a list of making sure that you're including everything for those particular industries. We're also going to talk about contracts, pros and cons. And then hopefully at the end, I will be able to give you some references to get some assistance, and I'll answer any questions. Okay. Oops, let me go back one. Okay, guys, so planning your technology budget. So when it comes to planning it, your IT firm should have all of the answers. So if you have an IT provider, please reach out to them, okay? If you do not have an IT firm or an IT provider, please schedule a meeting with me. I can walk you through any specifics to create your technology budget. I also created a free IT buyer's guide that provides you with all the information you need to hire a firm if that is something that you're interested in doing. And that can be found once again on the website, okay? If you have an in-house IT professional, they may be guiding your decisions. So ask them, okay? Ask whoever's managing your technology currently, okay? The days of excluding your technology are ultimately over. There's simply too many compliance requirements, and we never want you to be caught off guard with having a huge amount of expenses that you did not account for. Okay, hence being able to create and plan out your budget. Okay, my goal today is to simply provide you with some valuable information that should guide you to your 2024 budget and every budget from that point forward. All right, so here's some things to consider in the budgeting process. Compliance requirements are growing, okay? So the federal, state, and insurance companies are dictating what you need to have in place to ensure your business is protected, okay? The technology lifespan is decreasing. Now, I remember 23 years ago, technology really lasted us a long time. We could buy a piece of equipment and that piece of equipment would last us 5 to 8 years. But that is no longer what's happening. So you need to make sure that you never replace all of your technology at one time. So we like to get system replacements and upgrades in every year's budget. So that we're never faced with having an enormous amount of money to replace every piece of technology that you have. Okay, so this means adding kind of some incremental upgrades and replacements. Okay, all right. Now we also want you to make sure that you are considering your projected future growth. Okay, so that growth, sometimes I'll go into a client and they have a plan, right? You will base your businesses on creating a plan. And we want to make sure that anything on the tech side is included when we move from year to year. So please make sure that you're keeping your IT professional in the loop on any growth projections that would involve technology. Okay, so those are just three things to consider. All right, so I often get asked, what should we be paying? Now, I want to make sure that there's no miscommunication on what you minimally should be budgeting. All right. Now, if you are a small company, now by that I mean 5 or fewer computers, you are likely to pay between 8,000 and 13,000 a year for IT services. Okay. And obviously, it goes up from there based on how many systems you have, how many staff you have. So remember, all compliance-driven industries need to meet those basic compliance requirements, and that does involve some IT assistance. Okay, so please make sure that you're at least under no misconception. Now, here's the good news. The good news is that if you are small, now I'm not talking just about 5 or fewer. I'm talking about 100 or fewer, right? So if you have 80 computers, you may not need to have a full-time staff member, right? So hiring an IT person that specifically does that for you is oftentimes not cost effective, right? So if you're paying an IT firm less than it would be to actually hire an employee, you're doing well, right? So that there's a very fine line between getting the right assistance to make sure you're meeting your IT requirements. All right, so here's a list. It's going to be a couple of slides long of the things that you need to make sure that you're including. Okay, so as I work on clients' budgets, these are the items that I need to make sure I have in place for auditing and compliancy stuff. All right, so number one is the computer security and automation. Simply means a cloud-based security suite. Okay, so having something like AVG or McAfee or Norton are really not enough anymore because it's hard to hold that software accountable, right? Most of those off-the-shelf solutions are just not enough. Okay, the automation part of that basically means that someone needs to make sure that updates, patches, and scans are all taking place every day. Okay. And unless you have someone monitoring those, they normally don't happen. And that is when hackers will use that as a way in without you ever realizing it. Okay. Now, backup of your data is important and cannot be on the same computer the data is actually on. So when we talk to prospects, clients, companies that don't want to do business with us, they'll say, well, yeah, we back up our data. The problem is that they're either backing it up on the same computer or they are backing it up to an external hard drive. Okay, now that's fine. The problem with that is if the hard drive stays connected, it's not really an effective backup. So you want to make sure that you're including offsite secure backup. A firewall appliance is actually a piece of hardware. So when I talk to you, I'll ask, do you have a firewall? It's a piece of equipment. It's going to be an appliance that sits with your network equipment. It's normally in the same location as your internet service provider's equipment, and that requires maintenance. So it's not just you plug it in and you walk away from it, right? So we want to make sure that you're including the maintenance of that firewall. Okay. Now, next up is security awareness training. All right. Now, this is relatively new. And if you have not implemented security awareness training yet, you are going to need to. If you are going to consider cyber liability insurance, it's a requirement. You have to prove that you're offering some type of security awareness training. Now, there's many ways to do it. We deploy some automation, so we are able to detect and figure out who, if anyone, is putting your company at risk. And that's super important, right? Do you have any happy clickers, those that just can't identify a spam email and are clicking on things? So remember, 80% of all of your intrusions are normally caused by someone that works for you, right? So we want to make sure that some security awareness training is deployed. And just to note, as artificial intelligence is being used Hackers are getting more and more sophisticated because we used to be able to identify an email by misspelled word or wording that just didn't make sense, right? It was something weird. They're using AI now, so the emails are more difficult to identify. Okay, so make sure security awareness training is added into that budget. Right now, for most of you, you will have some type of Microsoft Office suite and hopefully a domained email. Once again, those are costs that need to be built into your budget. We want to make sure that that you have a professional email. So if you are still using Gmail or Yahoo, we need to get you out of that. We need to get you out of those. It's very difficult to protect a Gmail or a Yahoo email. So we want to make sure that we're getting you into a professional email account, and you should be paying for that. And we want to make sure that that's included in that budget from year to year. Okay. Now, also to be included, don't forget about any complex password enforcement and management. So once again, this is something new that cyber liability insurance is requiring. So we walk into businesses all the time where passwords are on a post-it. Sometimes they're right on the monitor. And we can't have that anymore, right? We've got to be able to get passwords that are complex. By that, I mean 12 to 16 characters or longer. And it's difficult to keep track of that. So we want to make sure that you have a tool that will assist you in developing a password management program. Plus, it'll help you keep track of staff passwords as well. And we certainly don't want you to have to micromanage, right? So password enforcement and management can be deployed automatically. All right, now, one of the other insurance recommendations and requirements is two-factor, which is that authentication that forces you to authenticate to another piece of equipment, right? To identify you are who you are. Normally, it will two-factor to your cell phone, but we can also two-factor to a regular phone or to an email account. Now, I want to point out here that you need to make sure that your two-factor is included in your budget and that you are two-factoring all accounts. That would mean access to your bank accounts, right? Which your bank should be enforcing two-factor. That involves your Microsoft accounts. That involves every login that you have needs to be able to be two-factored. So make sure that you're including that in your budget as well. Okay. DNS filtering gives you the ability to kind of control where you and your employees go on the internet. Once again, this is a recommendation and a requirement from the state. So if you are in one of those compliance-based industries, that is going to be something that you're going to want to build into your future budgets. Compliance documentation is also super important. We want to make sure that you have to have them in hand with regards to documentation that you have in place for auditing purposes. So if you have someone doing that for you, make sure that that is included in your budget. Okay. And then there's a couple of last items that most of my clients will forget, and that's computer upgrades and replacements. Once again, I never want you to have to replace your entire asset inventory at the same time, right? So we try to include a little at a time of upgrades. Now, keep in mind, October of 2025 is the deadline for Windows 10 end of life. So if you have Windows 10 computers, we want to make sure that you're considering replacing all of them, however many you have, by October of 2025. So you have a couple of years to get that asset inventory under control, evaluate which ones need to be upgraded, and then build it into your budget. Okay. And then obviously any projects. So anything that you have that is going to involve technology in any way. So some of our clients will say they want to go into a VoIP phone solution. Okay, well, that's technology. So we need to make sure that we're building that in. Some of you may be switching internet service providers. Some of you may be moving locations. Some of you may be having to rewire, recable. So make sure that you're including any project work from year to year and build that into your budget. Okay, and of course, there's the usual cost that you would probably build into your admin fees when your line items, when you're talking about administrative stuff. That will be website costs, domain cost for that www dot whatever your company is.com, right? That may be a cost. Now, no, you may have purchased your domain for a long period of time, so you may have your domain for 10 years. We just want to make sure that that renewal is in line with the budget. Okay. Obviously, internet and phone expenses, as well as any surveillance equipment costs. So some of you may have audio, video that is securing your facilities. Don't forget to include those costs as well. Okay. All right. So here's what is required. So those are the things that you should be included. I've given you those 2 slides with the list. Here is what is required if you are in a compliance-based industry. One is the security and update automation. You have to have it. It's the only way that you can make sure that you are not at risk of getting your information hijacked or attacked. Okay. Data backup, once again, are required. It needs to be secure and off-site, and you need to make sure you're considering the retention of that backup. Okay. Next is a firewall appliance. So that is the physical piece of equipment that is between you and your internet connection. For us, we track that. We are held accountable to you for that. We try to make sure that we're educating you with regards to the things that our firewall is blocking, and whoever is managing that firewall, it will be able to report those to you. Security awareness training is required, and once again, that comes in many factors. Complex password enforcement and management, also part of cyber liability. Email security, which means you have to have a way to encrypt email, and that is an added cost. So we want to make sure that you're considering that, and make sure that you've got that as part of a required budget item. And then, of course, 2-factor on all accounts. Now, 2-factor authentication normally does not cost you anything if it's being provided to you by the vendor. So if you're logging into your bank allows you to 2-factor, right? So just make sure that is happening. You want to make sure 2-factor is actually. Okay. Okay, guys. Now, that is it kind of on the budget side. Please ask questions if you've got any. But I do want to mention contracts a little bit. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with them. And here's why. Because I walk into companies who are put into a contract or have a current contract with a vendor with very little benefit to the client, right? So contracts are supposed to be good on both sides, right? You're going to sign a contract because it's beneficial for you as well as the vendor. Now, personally, I love contracts. I love knowing that I'm going to lock a client in for a certain length of time. The problem is that you need to hold me accountable, right? Your expectations need to be, if I'm going to lock you into something, we want to make sure that I'm meeting everybody's needs. So here's a couple of things. Understand your why. Okay. Understand why are you going into a contract? Is it a price lock? Which is what I encourage my clients. If it's a client for a long time and we've built a relationship and they know me and I know them and we work really well together, then yes, I will put them in a contract because it will lock the price, right? It will lock the price. And for you, it's easier to budget. So that is a benefit of yours. Is there a price reduction if you sign a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract? Is the vendor reliable? Do you know them? Are they doing a good job for you? Okay. And is there a clearly defined statement of work? So does the contract kind of say, this is what I promise, this is what you promise, and is that clearly laid out? Okay. Now, understanding their why is also important. So for a vendor like me, I am an IT provider. That's what my company does. Is I like the term length, right? So for me, I like to know that I have a client for 3 years. Okay. I like to know that I have guaranteed revenue coming in, right? So that's my why. I like a clearly defined statement of work, just like you. And I love to build that relationship. Okay. That is beneficial, right? Now, here's where I need to clarify some things, because you have to know the length of the term of the contract, what the price lock throughout that length is, or is it incremental increases? Because some vendors will do an incremental increase, which is fine, as long as you can project that out year over year to accommodate the budget, right? I really need you to know what the buyout or renewal options are. So is there, can I get out of the contract? What are the terms of getting out of the contract? Now we have 90-day outs. So not all vendors, matter of fact, most will not give you an out. That's the point of the contract. But I believe, as many I'm sure do, that if I'm not doing a good job for you, or you're not doing a good job for me as a client, you're not meeting my expectations, or you're not taking on my recommendations, then it's not a good fit. And I feel like that is important, right? If in order to work together long term, you really have to have an established relationship. Okay. And is there any early cancellation penalties? So if you find out 6 months in that that vendor is really not meeting your needs and they're not doing what's promised, what's the penalty if you decide to cancel the contract? Okay. So just please make sure you are understanding the terms of the contract. I have walked in to countless clients who were in a contract and just saw no benefit on their side. Okay. Or they were paying an astronomical price for equipment they simply could have purchased and then gone with a maintenance agreement instead. So please make sure that first if you have an IT firm, or if it's us, if you're a client, please make sure that you are talking any contract out. Okay. Talk it out so that you understand what the terms are. Like I said, I personally, my company loves contracts. I love to make sure that that I have you as a client for a long period of time. But I also understand that that I need to do a good job for you, right? And you need to take on the recommendations of your firm. So make sure you're considering those things with contract. Okay. All right. So here's a summary, guys. I know this is only a 30-minute webinar, so there's not a lot of time, but here's a summary. Include technology in your budget for 2024 and beyond. So if that is not something that you've considered in the past, please make sure that you're including that. Meet minimum compliance requirements at the very least. At the very least, meet the compliance requirements. Evaluate and determine projects and upgrades. Please talk to your insurance provider. If you have cyber liability insurance, then you have filled out a questionnaire. It's normally a very lengthy questionnaire. We do them all the time for our clients. We want to make sure that you're answering those honestly and that you've implemented the guidelines. Okay. Contracts, it's all in the details. Okay. And use your IT firm as your IT consultant. So please make sure that you're considering them when you're working on the budget. I help my compliance driven industries with their technology budgets. We're doing it right now. So that's what prompted that. Okay, guys, here's some CST upcoming webinars. So once again, October, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity requirements. They are very specific with regards to a little bit more detail of what we're going to be doing. We've got some surfing stuff coming into play and an end of year wrap up. So please make sure that you stay in the loop on registering for those. And I do have a special offer. So if you are a client and you're on this call, I'm doing the assessments for you automatically, right? So there is a network assessment. I do them for you regularly. My team keeps track of you. Now we are offering for a limited time a free kind of penetration test for those that are on the call that are not yet doing business with us. So if you have what you believe to be great IT, that's fantastic. We never want to interfere with that. What we want to make sure is that they're doing their job. So we can truly offer this free penetration test. It just simulates ultimately what a hacker would have access to if they were to get into your network. So we want to make sure that that we understand where the holes and gaps are. So that is a free penetration test. You can email Sarah or give the office a call, and she can get that scheduled for you. So just note we are offering that to all potential prospects. Okay, guys. So, do we have any questions? I always like to kind of hold some space. I know we've kind of gone over, and I was a little late to the party. So, so if we have any questions, Sarah, can you hear me? Are we? Okay, I can't hear Sarah, but I do know that there's one question in the Q&A. And the question is, we are a small town with only 3 computers, and we simply don't have a budget for all of this. What do you suggest we do? All right, so I understand completely. Compliance is a lot of work, and it's expensive, and it can be expensive. I completely get it. So I want to follow some basic guidelines. And if you can reach out to me, I can kind of give you an idea of what is minimally the stuff that you would need to have, and then I would step it out. That would be my recommendation. We work with small organizations, small companies, and then we work with very large companies, and we do understand the budget constraints. So please schedule a meeting with me so I can further kind of dig into what you have versus what you're going to need. Okay. So please reach out and schedule. All right, guys. I appreciate you attending. If you have any questions, please schedule a meeting with me. You can go to the website to do that. You can contact Sarah to do that. You can give us a call to do that. And I will see you next time. All right. Thanks, guys.